Okay, and I am back, and this time I don't have a warning screen. We're back at the beach in Herzliya, and we're gonna go for a little flight, and I'll tell you my thoughts on the cartoon problem. That's me. Hello, I'm wearing shorts because it's become summer while I was away. So as you may have noticed, I was in London, though I was not doing a whole lot of posting. I did one short video. And while I was there, this whole New York Times cartoon thing blew up, which I wrote a couple of pieces about today. And yeah, what a mess the New York Times is in. Let's make that a bit brighter. It doesn't surprise me at all. The problem is, this was the international New York Times, and they obviously ran a cartoon from a syndication thing. And I want to just explain syndication, which is something I spoke about in the piece I wrote earlier on brianoflondon.me and another corresponding piece on Israeli Cool. So syndication, which is very similar to the Newswire service, means that one company collects together the output of a lot of cartoonists, puts them all in a big package, and says, if you subscribe to our feed, you can run any one of these cartoons whenever you like. And so what that means is that supposedly the editors at the New York Times, or the international New York Times, they can just look in a big bucket of cartoons and say, oh, we'll have that one, and they can print it and run it without having to ask anyone for permission. And you know, that's all well and good, but the problem with it is, let's just try this. The problem with it is that you know, you're relying on the quality, the selection of the editors of the syndication service. And I said immediately in this piece that I wrote this morning, you know, the questions that everybody needs to be asking are, what were the selection criteria for allowing this particular cartoonist into the syndication unit? And it would seem, just after I published and wrote that piece, someone showed me on Breitbart that sure enough, the New York Times has now basically banned or stop their editors from using this syndication service. And that doesn't surprise me in the least, because, you know, what else are they going to do? In fact, they've stopped all syndicated cartoon pieces, which tells me that they've realized very, very quickly that there's a big problem with the syndication services. And this is similar to the point that I've been making for years around news wires like Associated Press, Television News, APTN and Reuters. The big problem that we have with all of those services is that they control the quality for a large number of other outlets. So there are a lot of outlets taking AP stories or Reuters stories, and they just assume that the quality is going to be good, that they're not going to be biased or any of these other things. And that, I think, is a huge mistake. Huge mistake. And I've pointed out the bias in the news wires. And the problem with it, when you get a biased piece running in AP or Reuters, it means that it goes out to literally tens of thousands of outlets. Same thing with this cartoon. It appears in the New York Times, but it didn't just appear in the New York Times. Without a doubt, it was syndicated in other publications, most likely. I mean, some of them will have been horrified, but some of them wouldn't. I can't believe that Stormfront are paying for syndication, but if they were, they would have liked that cartoon. And I don't like banging on about anti-Semitism, because to me it smacks of sort of social justice warrior, and it's something that makes me feel that I'm being a bit identity politics in a bad way. But the trouble is, anti-Semitism really is very, very dark. It's very, very deep. It's existed for a very long time. And it leads to terribly dark things. And the problem to me is not so much what happens to Jews under anti-Semitism. It's what it reveals about the underlying society in which it manifests. Every society that has manifested this kind of Jew hatred of people for immutable characteristics, because that's what this is. Judaism, the kind of Jew hatred that this turns into, says that it doesn't matter if you're a left-wing progressive Jew or a right-wing settler or a whatever kind of Jew you are, you're guilty of something. That's what they're saying. This cartoon is saying the Jews are trying to control the world. That comes from the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That's the forgery that the Tsarist Russians did to spread Jew hatred and control their people. Hitler used exactly the same set of lies. That was his go-to sets of lies. Those are the lies, and they are lies. Look, there are Jews in prominent positions in the media. There are Jews in prominent positions in politics throughout the West, but this is just because Jews happen to be overachievers. We can go into the alt-right and the far-right have got their views on genetics and so on. It's not important for the purposes of this. Jews are slightly overrepresented at the top of many fields. As I keep saying, except in professional golf and committing genocide. We're crap at those two. But in many other fields, yeah, Jews are successful. Not all Jews. And if you come to Israel, you'll see a much wider mix, for example, of what Jews do for a living. There are Jewish bus drivers and the refuse guys, the sanitation people, the street sweepers. They're all Jews here because most of 70+% of our population is Jews. So Jews do those jobs that perhaps you out in the rest of the world are not used to seeing Jews doing. But anti-Semitism, Jew hatred for being Jews, that is a poison, and it's a poison that very few societies ever survive. If they catch it, if they start manifesting it, if it starts becoming socially acceptable to show it. And there's an even worse thing, which is when people who are doing it, like perhaps this editor at the New York Times or all the other people who work at the New York Times, who should be horrified that they could be even accused of Jew hatred, because Jew hatred really is just another form of racism, and they're supposed to hate all racism. If they really do hate racism, to then find that they're working at a newspaper that has published a very racist cartoon. I mean, all you have to do is switch Netanyahu and Trump for any two other figures. Say, let's switch Trump to Obama, and let's switch the Netanyahu dog to Jesse Jackson or Reverend Jeremiah Wright leading a blind Obama. You try and draw that cartoon. Do you think the New York Times would accidentally publish it over a weekend because somebody didn't know that it was wrong to portray Barack Obama as blind and being led by, say Jesse Jackson? None of those examples even come close, because you don't have the history of Hitler and the Nazis exterminating 6 million Jews. But it would be unthinkable for the New York Times to run any of those things, but they ran this one. And that's the position they're in, and that's what they are. I personally believe it stems from their positions on Israel. By the way, what are the kids doing down there? They're getting ready, actually, for a little ceremony they're going to have later tonight. This is the Scouts, the Sea Scouts, commemorating Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Memorial Day. But that's what we do here in Israel. Anyway, that's about all I've got before my battery starts beeping. Thanks very much for watching. I've enjoyed live streaming and flying again in the sun. And catch you all next time. I'm Brian of London. Find me at brianoflondon.me.